kid you not, like God put me in a situation where I had to replace my car. I started a new job and the requirement was my car was too old.
Wow.
They said cars had to be under 5 years old. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But they compensated for it.
Nice.
So I was able to bring him into the conversation and said, look what you prayed for.
Happened,
And look how God made it happen.
Oh, Feluke, what do you think of that?
Oh, Feluke.
Nice.
Feluke's jamming over here. Oh, Feluke is so cool. She's a much better chair dancer than the rest of us.
Chair dancer. Thank you, Grace.
You got it down. I could see you in the car. Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of On Purpose Parents.
Yeah, baby.
Podcast. My name is Grace.
I'm Chris.
And across from me, who just introduced himself, is not Kurt.
Not Kurt.
Not Kurt today.
Yeah.
But Chris, our producer Chris, but today, hot seat Chris, right?
Yeah.
You are
chair of despair.
Chair of despair is what you called it last
heat.
time. But most importantly, in the middle seat, our seat of honor. I don't know, that didn't rhyme. It's not chair of despair. Do you have a rhyme for the seat of glory? The
seat of glory.
No.
The place of pain.
No.
How about the spot?
That's your chair.
The spot of distraught.
What? Wow, why are we going dark today? I thought you were going to come up with something, glorious like. Anyway, not the spot of distraught, but I'll stick with the chair of glory. We have our guest that we. It's better than
she asked for your help. She did ask for your help.
We have once again this week our spectacular guest, Feluke.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Last week, if you didn't have a chance to listen, was a incredible, profound, and really thought-provoking episode on blended families.
Yeah.
And we brought Feluke back again this week because, one, she's amazing. But also she has some words of wisdom that she could share on single parenting.
Yep.
And what it's like to raise a child by yourself and the dynamics with that. And we really want to be able to provide all kinds of resources to our parents. And we know our families out there are all different kinds of families. And so we wanted to just have this episode to specifically talk about single parenting. And we do want to preface this by saying, there's so much you could talk about and unpack in the topic of single parenting. And so we have few questions this morning that we're going to go through with Feluke and get her words of wisdom. But we also acknowledge there's, this is only going to be scratching the surface of the topic and that there's a lot more to talk about it. So Chris, can you share what resources are out there, after today's episode where people can get more information on this topic?
Yeah. So we're still super new at this. I mean, we are at, we started in January with the ministry, and and our heart is we want to help parents win. Right. That's everything we do is about that. So we're thinking, what are some things that we can do just to help parents all over the planet, how we can help them win? Well, let's just give away free resources. Okay, great. What are those free resources going to look like? Well, one of them is a podcast. Let's pull a podcast together. So we do this weekly podcast. Another thing is we have a blog, right? Which Feluke, you write for, which is fantastic. But we have different authors come together, write about different topics, step parents, single parents, moms, dads. We kind of target those different affinities. And yeah, we have a lot of different topics that we write on. So that's onpurposeparents.com. So if you go to onpurposeparents.com, you'll see our website, and it's all free resources on there. We have studies, we have the podcast, the blog, we have 2-minute tips, which are fantastic, and just hundreds and hundreds of resources that are on there that's free.
Yes, that's awesome. So our listeners should definitely check out the website. If there's something we talk about today that just strikes an interest in you to really dive deeper, we'll probably be putting up a blog post on some of these questions that we're going to talk about today to really dive in deeper into this subject matter. So,
hey, you know what else just happened? Okay. We just hit 10,000 subscribers for our YouTube podcast. So I'm trying to find the button here.
Come on, producer Chris.
There it is.
Confetti falling down. Yay.
But thanks for doing that, guys. That's from you. It's from you just watching and sharing with friends and that kind of thing. And we love that. And the more you click like button and you comment and you click on at the end, you watch different videos. The YouTube algorithm really likes that. And they kind of promote it out to more people. More people get to kind of see what we're doing. And we're just about just real people who want to help, right? And we're not in this ivory throne or tower just saying we've arrived and we know everything there is to know. We're parents ourselves, and we just want to share and help and
be a community together and just walk this journey together. And like you said, really help parents win.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
For sure.
The planet, he said.
Yeah.
I love it. He dreams big. I'm right there with him, the whole planet.
Well,
visionary.
Gosh, we have people from India and Australia and Singapore and Hong Kong and Mexico, in addition to the United States, Philippines. I mean, they're just people all over the world are watching and sending us emails, parents at saddleback.com, by the way, if you want to email questions or whatever, or you can post things in the comments, but we respond to those as well. So,
awesome. Yep. Well, we are here for you all, and today we're excited to dive into single parenting. So, Chris, do you want to kick us off with the first question?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I should have been ready for this already. Okay, so you're part of a blended family right now, and if you have not listened to the Blended Family podcast yet, that was last week. So go ahead and look for that with Feluke, but you can hear a little bit more about her story. But when you were a single parent, how did you manage between parenting responsibilities and just all your personal stuff that you had going on too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that I would say was a blessing. Hello, everybody. I'm Feluke Pope. I'm so glad to be back with you guys. It was a blessing how God, I believe, orchestrated different things to help me be prepared for being a single parent. Mm-hmm. I happen to be really organized. I have like some skills of my own that contribute very well to being a single mom, to being a single parent, that not everybody has. Okay, so I have to say that up front because it's a very challenging role. And if you do not already like run a household and you're not already a multitasker that with an organizer and all of that, it could be very, very difficult. But the question is, what helped me, right? Manage my time. And I kept a calendar, lived by calendars. I communicated very well with my son. And at that time, he was 4 years old. Okay.
So you became a single parent. You have one child.
Child.
And he's 4 years old.
Yes.
When you first started.
Yes. I was married for 8 years. His dad and I got divorced when he was 4. And that was very difficult. We actually got separated. Our journey was that we got separated for probably about 9 months. And in that time, my son was 2 at the time. And that was very difficult. He had his own 2-year-old, I hate calling it temper tantrums. Yeah. That terrible twos that could be wonderful, but in his case, oh my God. But compounded with his dad and I being separated, it was very difficult. But by the time he turned 4 and we were getting a divorce, he was able to understand things a little bit better. The terrible twos were over, and a lot of communication. This is what's happening. This is what we're going to do. So he was ready for it. He was ready for where we were going to live. And that helped minimize a lot of stress. Another thing that I will tell you is that God literally sent 2 angels to me in advance. On a plane, I travel a lot for business. And on 2 different plane rides, God sat people next to me who wanted to tell me about their own divorce and single parenting journey.
Wow.
And the first person was a young lady. I believe she lived in India. And her advice to me was very simple. Do not do this by yourself. She said, do not have so much pride that you feel that you are going to get a place by herself. She told me all the things that she did wrong. And at that time, that was literally in the moment leading up to the divorce, where I was having to decide whether or not to move in with my parents or live by myself. And it wasn't a financial decision for me. For other people, it might be.
Right.
But for me, it wasn't. I could be perfectly fine. But God sent these angels to confirm what he'd already told me, which is the best thing is for you to live with your parents. And so in that season, I did. I submitted physically to living back under my parents' roof, which I had not for a very long time. But it was the best thing for my son. So coordinating my parents if I needed to. And I really did, again, a little bit of pride. I wanted to handle all of those things by myself. But I had to acknowledge that I had limitations. So I was able to ask for help. And I had an amazing community of friends and my siblings. Again, communication, this is what I need. I can do all of these things, but occasionally I'm going to need your help with X, Y, and Z. And I traveled for business. Oh my God. So there were times when I was gone.
Right.
And that was tough for my son. But with the communication, there was a season where I was literally working remotely in Texas every week. From Sunday evening till Thursday night. And I would tell my son when I come back on Friday, we're going to have, we call it our mommy and me time.
Yeah.
Right. And I would take him to IHOP for IHOP breakfast.
Yay!
Pancakes and lots of syrup. And
Ooh, that sounds
coincidentally, even though he's now 15, right? We still do it. We still do
That's
our mommy
great.
and me time. It looks
Love
a little
that.
different
Yeah.
now, but just a lot of communication, a lot of organization, a lot of submitting to the fact that I'm limited and getting other people to help me.
That's so good.
And I would have struggled immensely, not just emotionally, because it's already an emotional baggage, right? But then you compound that with time obligations, financial obligations, guilt trips, and I can't bear all of that by myself. So I asked for help.
That's a good
Yeah.
reminder. Yeah. Especially when, and we talked about this last episode too. It's so easy when things feel a little bit out of control to really hunker down and go inward and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to grasp this. I'm not going to let anyone else hurt me or affect me. I'm going to take care of it all. And at the end of the day, you get burned out.
And your child feels it.
And your child feels your stress.
Because you're not your best you when
Yeah.
you're under stress, and the child needs you to be a better you.
Right, especially during those times of transition. Can you share for other single parents that might be listening and going through maybe something similar, any insights you have on how you navigated co-parenting and maintaining a positive relationship with your child's other parent after the separation?
Yes. So boundaries.
Dun, dun, dun.
The best thing. And I did not know about boundaries until the divorce. And I tell people that for me, getting a divorce was a blessing. God meets all of us where we are, right? And he uses our pain in the best way. But it took the divorce for me to learn what healthy boundaries look like. So I've gone through all of the boundaries and families, boundaries in dating, boundaries in parenting, boundaries. But the navigating the co-parenting was all about boundaries, setting boundaries on what was mine and what was not mine. What happened in my ex-husband's household was not mine. So, and I clearly communicated that. I did not need to know, so long as it did not negatively impact my son. And early on, there were some scenarios that were troubling to me, and I brought it to his attention. And I said, nope, that is not okay with me, you know. And he handled it. And sometimes it required pulling his family members in, but it got handled. But understanding where my line stopped and started, right? I can deal with my son. I can provide financially for my son. I know for some single parents, it could be very financially trying. I'm grateful that wasn't my story, but I didn't overdo it. You know, courts, this is what's decided,
Right.
financial obligations, but I wasn't knocking on the door for more money for this, more money for that. A kid needs it. No, 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 no. That's inside my domain. What I cover with my budget, that's what I cover with my kid. So our communication was very clearly focused on our child. It wasn't about anything else. And that line was drawn very early, but I had to enforce it and enforce it and enforce it. And even with my son, I would tell him, whatever you want to share about your dad, you're free to do so. But I'm not going to ask you details about his life.
Oh.
Share what's going on with you. If there's something that you want me to know, I am open. I'm here to listen, but I'm not prying. I will not pry.
Where did he go that
No,
weekend? Where's
who is he with?
Who is he with? Like, did he da da da? But only that makes sense. Like, if it's on your son's heart,
Yes.
something about his dad or his feelings,
Or his safety.
you're gonna listen to that.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't have anything to do with your son and it's just
Gossip.
extra
and
information,
that doesn't
you
help
cut
my
yourself
heart.
off.
It doesn't help
Right.
my heart. And
That's a really good
it wouldn't
point.
have been beneficial. Yeah.
That's really good.
You know, you alluded to finances, right? And that can be really difficult for a single parent, single mom, single dad. What are some tips that you have as it relates to saving and spending and giving and, you know, that
Yes.
type of thing? So when it comes to financial management.
So again, before I got divorced, God was preparing me. And through my brother-in-law, I learned about Dave Ramsey, got a resource book, and I had started walking down that debt snowball, right? And getting financially debt-free. So I started that journey before the divorce, but I maintained it after the divorce. So even though I was living with my parents, I was still providing financially for their home as if I was still in my husband's home. Everything that I did financially there, I put literally just into their home. But I walked the debt-free journey using the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University, Saddleback has financial freedom workshop. It's amazing. But I learned how to budget. I learned how to stick to a budget. I learned how to sacrifice because I knew what my end goal was, right? And even at that time, I knew that I wanted to own my home and have my son and I living in our own space. So that meant sacrificing. So all of my pampering, hair did, nails did, all of that stuff was on pause. It just was. If I did not need it, if my son did not need it, we didn't do it. And I think that's a great thing. As adults, we have to learn to say no to ourselves, right? Discipline, self-discipline, so we can teach kids. But my son saw me walk through that journey and communication. This is our budget when we went to the grocery store, right? We got a $60 budget this week. And he said, but mommy, I want this, I want that. I was like, awesome, you can have it so long as we're under the $60.
Right.
So that was a journey that we went on together and it kept me accountable. I knew what the end goal was, right? I needed to provide for this kid going to college. There were so many things. And that meant in this season, I had to say no to a lot of things. But outside of that season, I got debt free, saved for a house, bought a house. Then things could open up a little bit more. So it wasn't like that time was going to be forever. But the communication, working on a budget, saving, spending on the necessities, and talking to a child about what that looked like. Because it wasn't just going to be me understanding how to deal with money, but ultimately I'm not raising a child. I'm raising a godly adult, right? God-fearing, intentional about his own relationship with God, making wise decision adult. So that meant that I had to model for him what financial stewardship looked like.
How did you handle like maybe internal thoughts that you would have as it relates to not I deserve to have these certain things, or he deserves to have these. I want to provide for him. I want to give him the best and the most. And how do you balance that with, hey, we're on a budget here.
Yeah.
And
I let the budget decide that. And I'm saying it like it's easy, but it was a struggle because there was so much that I wanted to give him. But that wasn't my personality. I knew what the purpose was. I knew what the end goal was. So it was a lot easier for me to say no. It's hard saying no to a kid, especially a 4-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I want this. Oh my God. Oh, and don't let him throw himself on the floor in the middle of a grocery store. And, I mean, your heart tugs, right? There's some small things you say yes to. Yes, you want that piece of candy. Yes, and ultimately, yes, you want those shoes. But I would simply tell him sometimes, not right now.
Yeah.
Right? The answer, and I would actually tell him yes, but not now. Yes, later. Yes, in a few months. Let me save up for it. Right? So I wouldn't tell him no.
That's so good.
That's great.
But it would be yes in a few months.
Yeah.
You're bringing up that principle of delayed gratification,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
But also, like, you gave your son a really precious gift of actually him getting to experience a journey of managing money together. Because I think there is a lot of it's just the way that it usually goes. As parents, you don't really involve your kids on grown-up stuff, right? Especially your 4-year-old. You'd be like, this is my budget. You just say no. Right. You just know, like, I'm making the decisions. I'm the captain. You listen to me. But what a precious gift you gave your son, which is, this is our plan. This is our longer term goal. And it's not forever. But what that means is we have to make some boundaries and some guardrails and some rules for this season right now. And you being consistent with that and reflecting that to your kid, I think that's such a valuable lesson for a child of how to manage and be wise and just understand that, of course, we're going to have all these feelings where we desire and want stuff. Yeah. But that's not the only thing that controls decision making. We can be prudent in how we make decisions. And it doesn't mean just saying, oh, buying everything is a bad thing.
Right.
I loved what you said, that you made those decisions based on a goal. Because I think sometimes parents can get super frugal just because for some reason that in and of itself is the goal. Like maybe there's some control or fear of, money brings up a lot of different things inside of us. But for you, you were saving not just because you felt, oh, not spending money is a holy thing or something. Right. It's for a goal. It's to get to create a better future for us while meeting our needs in the present in the best way we can. So that's awesome.
But it also allowed me to bring God into the conversation.
Yeah.
So there were certain things he wanted. I remember there was a time when he wanted me to have a new car. And I'm like, what's wrong with my car? My car is just fine. But my response to him was, ask God for it. Mm-hmm. If there's something you want, there was a time he wanted a bigger bed. I'm like, why do you need a queen size bed? You do not need a queen size bed. But I said, but you know what? Why don't you simply ask God and see what God does? Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that in doing that, he will go and pray. And I kid you not, like God put me in a situation where I had to replace my car. I started a new job and the requirement was my car was too old.
Wow.
They said cars had to be under 5 years old. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But they compensated for it. Nice. So I was able to bring him into the conversation and said, look what you prayed for. Happened, and look how God made it happen.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
One of the things that we've already talked about is there's a lot on your shoulders as a single parent. You're navigating co-parenting, you're navigating finances, you're teaching your kids. How did you maintain a sense of self-care? And what were some of the things that you did and incorporated into your routine, if any, that helped you survive and thrive as a single parent and stay resilient?
I'm thinking at this moment of something that I probably shouldn't share, but I think it's real for single parents. Okay. And to answer your question, the self-care thing was hard. I remember maybe the first year when he would go off to his dad, we had a visitation schedule every other weekend. He would go to his dad's. And I'm like, what do I do with myself? The house is too quiet. what you want to spend that time worrying about your kid. At least I wanted to. That was a void, the silence. I'm going to be like so busy doing things for him while he's not here. It's kind of like a mother with a newborn. The baby's sleeping and you just want to stare at the baby. You go take a nap. You need to rest too. But it was very difficult. So I ultimately had to relearn what I like. That was a journey. I got married to his dad. We met in college. There was never for me a season of adulthood where I got to learn, what does Foluke like? How does Foluke have fun?
Wow. Yeah.
Who am I? So I started a journey to find out what I liked. And that meant trying different things, new things, going out with friends on those weekends. And the story that I was thinking of was signing myself up to do like a morning jog with a friend.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes those were the weekends my son was with me. And I would leave him at home. At this time, he was like 6, 7 years old. And I gave him clear instructions. We had our own house and he knew how the alarm system worked and I had cameras. I was like, okay, I'm going to go out tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. for a jog. You'll still be sleeping. I'll be back before you wake up. But in case I'm not.
You wake up, right?
The neighbor, right? So that conversation, but I had to take some risks and say, you know what? I think that's another journey with single parents is like your kids kind of grow up a little bit faster, maybe with certain situations that biological kids may not be exposed to because they have at least one parent that's going to be in the house. You can juggle it a little bit different. It's like, no, I actually still I need to go jogging. I need to exercise. I need to do things for my own mental health. And right now, that's going to require that I leave you at home for an hour. Can I do that? And with little bits of, situations, I could expand that time. And he got older, more responsible. I could trust him. And he wasn't scared. I know some kids were like, no, but my kid wasn't. So based on my child and the security that I provided, I took those risks.
Wow, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. The singles a lot of times will just feel so lonely, right? You're by yourself, you're in your head, you're thinking about, gosh, things that maybe could lead to depression because you're isolating yourself for whatever reason, and you're just not around people much. And you kind of shared how you've put yourself out there, you'll go with a friend doing some things, going out to dinner with friends, and how do you do that kind of thing? Or what are some other ways that you could get community and support and that type of thing from others?
Yeah, I think community is always necessary. I mean, God built us for community. And too often when we are in the storms of life, we want to isolate ourselves.
Right.
And I wanted to, I'm telling you, like all of me who wanted to run, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to like pack my child up and move out of state just to avoid people looking at you like, oh yeah, I know why you got divorced, right? And all that comes with that, the stigma of being a single parent, it's not nice, it's not kind. But I can do hard things. I've done hard things from being an immigrant here in the United States of America. I've learned to do hard things gradually. So that was one of the hard things that I did, was intentionally choosing to build a community, not just for myself though, but I had to be intentional about building a community for my son and understanding that the statistics around young boys growing up without a father in the home are really bad. Really bad. And that often makes people want to stay in really difficult, unhealthy marriages because of the fear of what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my kid if we have a divorce. But one thing that God ministered to me before I made the decision was that I got you. God is a God that knows the beginning from the end. And he doesn't stop working in your life because you got a divorce. He already knew that was going to happen. And he already has provision to take care of your child and take care of yourself. When I started the modern family, which is a small group community, right? A small group for single parents. And the very first story I shared with them was the story of Hagar, the first single parent, right? I believe mentioned in the Bible. And she created, what was it, like a table? I call it a table.
Like a picnic?
No, not a table, but an altar. That's what it's called, an altar. It's a table, an altar. And she said, Jehovah Rohi, the God who sees me. And God provided not just for Hagar, but he provided for Ishmael too. There were circumstances outside of her control that resulted in her being a single mom. But God didn't stop being God for her or him. So I had to trust that the same God who provided for her was going to provide for me and my kid. But I created a community for him, godly men. Thank God for my dad, my brothers. I had other godly men surrounding me, spouses of my friends that I could trust with my kid. If he needed someone to be there to watch his basketball games, he needed somebody to be there to talk about whatever, play video games with. And those men are like his big uncles. They're basically, he's older now, he's 15. So these men have grown up with him and they've watched him grow up, and they're like literally like big brothers to him. So the community for my own mental health, I surrounded myself with my core group of ladies. I went through SHAPE and discovered my spiritual gift, my heart, my ability, my passion, my experience. And I identified the women, the community around me that I wanted to share life with deeper. And they kept me accountable in that season.
Yeah,
when
so
things
good.
are down.
That's so good, because like you were saying, when you are going through a divorce or as a single parent, there can come with it a lot of different emotions, including shame or fear of judgment, or, just natural loneliness, or just being exhausted or not being able to do self-care, but maybe also guilt trips too, right? Like just not being able to do as much for your kid, or feeling like inadequate, or all of those things. And those things typically drive us away from community. Like we want to hide. It's just easier to not put yourself out there and be vulnerable, because sometimes you do get hurt or you do get burned. But I really appreciate what you said, which was, it wasn't that, joining a community and leaning into community was just naturally fun. You had to recognize the value of it and lean into it, and be intentional about it, even though inside there could be a lot of emotions that make you feel like you just wanted to pack up and run away and, hide from other people. So, that's
it's
really
almost
insightful.
like you need to do what you know is right, not what's easy, but do what's right, and kind of do the opposite of how you feel. It's like, if you feel like not doing that, but you know you need it and that's the right thing to do, put yourself in a place where you can connect with others. You talked about volunteering. Put your place, get in a spot that you're passionate about and that you're good at, and volunteer somewhere. Community, local church, whatever, get involved there, and you'll make some friendships that way. You'll meet other people that way. Go out with people for meals and stuff. You be the initiator with that, right?
But acknowledge your feelings. That's another journey God took me on through all of this. Is feelings are indicators, but they should not rule you. Right. So I had to acknowledge my feelings. I had to acknowledge my fears. I had to acknowledge all of that, the shame, all of the emotions that were coming up. And I had a community that I could talk to about that. Right. Instead of pretending I didn't have those feelings. I am not someone that puts up pretense, that, puts on a mask. It's like, everything's great. And a lot of people see me as being very happy. And yes, I'm fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
Which you are.
That is
you are.
Totally.
But if somebody caught me on a day when I was sad and they asked, hey, how are you doing today? I was like, this is tough.
I'm
and
sad.
I would be real.
Yeah.
I am actually really sad.
Yeah.
And you know, depending on the person, you don't go into like real deep with certain people. You have to know, you know, who you can trust with certain information. But I had those people that I could trust, and I could tell them, I could cry, and I could tell them how painfully lonely sometimes I was feeling.
Right. Yeah.
But I wouldn't try to cover it up.
That's good. That's really good. One last question for you, and this has been so fun and enlightening. So you are currently not single. So for those who might not have listened to our last episode, we were actually talking about blended families, which means Fluke is now married, family of 5 kids, 4 stepkids, 1 biological. So you did that transition from single parent to now blended family. But can you talk a little bit about that transition into the dating scene? And what advice can you give to those people who are trying to navigate getting back out there into the dating scene while still trying to prioritize your child or children's well-being?
Okay.
Everyone skips to this part right here. They're
wanna
skipping
know.
all the other stuff.
How did you?
Yeah, the
The
single
romantic part.
Yeah.
men and
Yes.
women are like, yeah.
But the journey is the best part, right? Where you're learning about yourself. And oh my goodness, I'm just realizing I just talked to some ladies recently, and they are single, never been married, but I know they have the desire to be. And one of the things that I told them is that even in that season of being single, right? God is your husband. Like really lean into what relationship do you want and start acting it now. Right? What kind of a wife do you want to be? Responsible, kind, generous, all of that, and start being it now in the season that you're in. So with dating, I knew not to involve my child in that early on.
Right.
Yeah, he just too young, and there's so many questions that children are having in their head and assumptions that they're making that they can't quite vocalize, right? So I did everything in my power to not even indicate that I was dating. But as he got older and kept grabbing my phone, it's like, so who are these text messages from? Yeah, you kind of start having to have those conversations like, okay, and I didn't date early on either, right? So it wasn't for a number of years that I started actually dating and testing it out just to see, what do I like, right? Who do I like? What kind of a person am I attracted to? Not that I wanted a serious relationship, but it was an opportunity to experiment.
Yeah.
But I had those conversations with him. Just because I am going out on a date with someone does not mean like tomorrow you're getting a stepdad and somebody's moving in. That's not what it is at all. We would navigate these waters together, and I would not surprise you with anything.
That's good.
But I am going to recommend a book that may seem like it's not appropriate for that topic, but it's called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets by Andy Stanley. And it really talks about 5 questions to ask yourself. Okay. But in that book, he talks about people remarrying. And one advice that he gave that I will give too is wait at least 1 year, after the date your divorce is final. Not wait 1 year after you move out. What does the date on that divorce decree say? And set your calendar for a year after that to even start dating. But I will add one other thing to what Andy Stanley says in the book. Ask for the divorce paper of the other person when you're dating them. Ask them. When was your divorce final? If they are also in, if they're divorced, because people don't necessarily share that, and they may actually still be in a marriage. So ask those questions in the beginning. But as far as the loneliness too, be very careful what you watch. Okay, we have ear gates and eye gates. Ear gates and eye gates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we let too many things in that we shouldn't. And as single people, there's a lot of TV shows and movies that you've got no business watching. Not because they're not good or they're not funny, but there's some explicit things there that only have you thinking about thoughts that will drive you away from being pure and make it even more difficult to stay pure and to keep the decisions and the commitments that you made. Because you're seeing people coupling up and doing things like, oh man, I wish I could do that. And that's not where you want what you want in your mind. So I was intentional, even though friends were like, oh, let's watch this show. And after watching an episode or two, I was like, I actually have no business watching that.
It's not good for you where you were at, and it's not
Exactly.
helping or adding to your life.
No, just intensifying emotions that you couldn't do anything with. So being very careful with that.
That's great. This has been so helpful, Fluke. Again, I'm looking forward to your blog posts on what was the website?
onpurposeparents.com, and then just click on the blog button. Fluke has her own author page too.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, the topics that we've talked about, the questions that we've asked is really just scratching the surface. I could just imagine us sitting around for another 4 hours, diving in deeper into each one. But what we're hoping to do is provide more thoughts and insights through the blog posts. Hopefully we can have you back for future episodes to dive deeper into some of these topics. Parents out there, if you are listening, if you have a question on anything that we talked about, or even something that we may not have talked about for both blended families and single families, please send us your questions, your thoughts, or even advice or input that you have from your experience as well. We would love to hear that and continue to support all of our parents in whatever journey that they're going through. And be a community together.
Yes.
And we are better
Together. Yes, we
So
are.
thank you.
Let's do this. Let's have you guys, if you have comments or if you have questions, put those in the comment section. And if you're just listening to us, you're not on YouTube, email it to parents@saddleback.com. And what we'll do is we'll do a parenting Q&A with Fluke. We'll bring you back and we'll have you answer some of our listeners' questions.
great.
Does that sound fun?
I knew he was going to find a way to give me back.
We'll do anything to get Felipe back.
No, but this was fun. Yes, I will do that.
It's so good. Thanks for being here with us. And thank you guys for taking the time and listening to us. If you're listening to us on YouTube right now, right above Grace, you're going to see a couple buttons up there. Click those and watch the next thing. And like we said, like, comment, subscribe if you haven't yet. Click this here. Share us with your friends. We really love your family. We pray for you guys, and we're excited that you listen to us. Okay, so
All right.
we'll
Have
see
a great
you
week.
next time.
Bye.
Next time,
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
I'm like,
He's going to press a button.
there it is.
There's our music.
That's the outro
Bye, everybody.
music.